All right, everybody, give me a minute or two to get set up for this little live stream. Just got the laptop here getting set up. Hope everybody's having a good day. I'm probably a couple of minutes early, so. We'll give everybody time to get on board. All right. Taterdom, good to see you. Like I said, just getting the old laptop set up. We'll give, let's see, I got a couple minutes too. We'll give everybody a chance to get set up. For those of you that may be new to the channel, while I still can't get my laptop to download. Welcome, my name is Platt. Some of y'all, if you're regulars to the channel, you've seen this act before. If not, I welcome you in. All right. Checking my internet connection. Got a little treat. This is my infinity bottle. If you're unaware of infinity bottles, new to the concept, basically this is where you'll do kind of your own blending. You'll just pour in various. This here is what I call my North American value blend. Start off with a Seagram 7. We add things like Jack Daniels, Jim Beam. And once you get about this low, you'll just top off with another bottle of whiskey. And it's kind of a great way to blend by yourself, or, kind of learn how to blend. If you've ever wondered, well, if I throw in a little rye with something like a wheated bourbon, like a Maker's, how would it taste? Well, that's kind of what you're doing with an infinity bottle. A couple more minutes, we'll give everybody. Like I said, if you're real quick, let me give you a little better introduction to myself than you might have got on the show last night. It was incredible how much stuff we shot when we did that show, and how little of it kind of made. There's so much on the cutting floor. So I'll give you just a kind of a proper introduction to myself. I said this deal, I'm a bartender, home brewer, all-around lover of booze. I been bartending for the most part of the last 20-something years. Total of my first bartending shift was all the way back in 1993, so I've been doing this a long time. One of my old bosses bought me a home brewing kit that got me into home brewing about 25 years ago. Eventually, I moved out here to Las Vegas in 2006 to kind of live the dream, win $1 million, date cocktail waitresses, and everything. And then actually, when I got out here, though, working in the big casinos, you got more interactions with the big liquor company. And Platinum did Great American Pub turn to PT's? Yes. There was we'd planned at one time for a possible watching party the other night, and the bar that we were going to use got bought out. So that kind of threw things off there. But anyway, so like I said, I got to interacting with some of the big liquor companies. And one of the perks was sometimes they flew us to distilleries. So I got to go to actual distilleries, kind of really started learning more about the actual art of distillation. And then, in 2011, me and some friends started our own company. And we'll get into it in a little bit. But that's kind of how I learned distillation. We were going to start our own spirits company. It was a company called Sideways Sunday Spirits. We started the company. We were going to make an apple pie moonshine. didn't quite come out, but anyway, that's how I learned the process. But anyway, as far as the YouTube channel goes, I've had this YouTube channel for about 10 years now. It's just my way of giving back, as I joke, to the community. All right, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Sorry about it. If I got any little bleed over there, but a couple more minutes, and then we'll be fired up to go. If anybody's got questions, though, I'm kind of ready to go. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. It's a fun little process. Oh, Brian! All right, Brian, my man, good to have you on. Yeah. Brian's one of the great bartenders out here in Vegas. Big fan of the YouTube. Cilantro to you. Oh, absolutely delicious. All right, so like I said, we'll get started with a little Q&A session. We'll go as long as you guys want to go. I got nothing else going on tonight, so to be honest, still recovering a little from last night. I'd had a few after the show, so that being said, like I said, so the show itself, if you're not familiar with Master Distiller, is a spin-off show of the TV show Moonshiners. Basically, they take amateur and professional distillers and compete. Generally, it's 3 a show, and then each show's a little different. One may be rum, one may be bourbon, one may be corn whiskey. We were something called poteen, or the way I've been told, the way they pronounced it on the show was poteen. For the feedback I've gotten, and what Connor was telling me on the show, that it's more like poteen. And like the pot is for pot, so it's more like poteen instead of poteen. And not to be confused with poiteen, which is brewing bad. Appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Not to be confused with the Canadian dish poteen, which is absolutely delicious. If you've never heard that, it's fried cheese curds, French fries, a little gravy on top. Ugh, to die for sure. So anyway, that's what we made last night, and I guess that's where we'll start off. Is what we made, kind of the history behind it, and then like if you guys have any questions, even on other topics. Curds and gravy, baby, you damn right. So anyway, poteen was probably really most likely precursors to what we think of modern day malt whiskeys or single malt whiskeys. Ireland was hit with a tax in the early 1600s, and that's when the distillers, quote unquote, became illegal and then became moonshiners. But what the Irish were producing was a malted barley based spirit. Again, they could use other things. They talked about in the show, brown sugar, beets, what have you. They weren't getting into other grains like corn, because 1600s they weren't getting corn over there. They probably would have access to oats, maybe some wheat, maybe some rye. However, rye and wheat are a little more finicky as far as just fermenting and creating a fermented product to get distilled. And that's one of the great advantages of barley. And that's kind of where I went from this when I got asked to do the show, was barley yeast. The type of sugar that barley produces is maltose, and that is the sugar that yeast love the most and will attack first. If it has like a buffet of sugar, it's going to attack that maltose first. That's why I went with a malted barley kind of base product, because one of the things on the show is we only got X amount of days to ferment out. When I brew a beer at home, especially if you're watching my beer brewing videos, generally I leave things in for a couple of weeks in the primary fermenter before I go into secondary. So I have plenty of time that yeast can, go at its own pace. But for the show's sake, we had a limited time fermentation. So I wanted to create something the yeast really got out of so I would have plenty of alcohol when we came back to do our first distillation. So that's kind of how I attacked this process. Again, if you study Pachines, it's most likely, and Connor even mentioned that it's most likely going to be a malted barley base, even though you could use other things. And I just found that kind of worked in my favor as a home brewer. I've already done a lot of beers, and so I feel good about working with barley. More importantly, I feel like I can get that fermentation done and have plenty of alcohol to bring to the distillation. Also, too, one of the things I like, and this is something if any of you guys are thinking about going on the show or getting into distilling, one of the great things about being a home brewer and doing the exercise and being in an organization like the American Homebrewers Association is you really learn the exercise of building out a recipe and then how much grain and the process to turn it into X amount of alcohol. That's one thing I've noticed on previous episodes of Master Distiller is some people aren't getting enough alcohol out of their fermentation, and it's making their runs tough. You know, we'll talk about a lot of times they either don't get up enough proof, they don't have just enough alcohol to really kind of go through the whole flavor range, what have you. And I think part of it is, I think as a home brewer, you do that mental exercise enough. So like my goal was, I was going to build a mash that came out to around 1080, maybe 1090 as far as original gravity reading. I was shooting for about 10% ABV. They didn't say it in the show, but my numbers, I think I came out around 8 or 9. But again, more than enough. And unfortunately, again, Connor, because he didn't have the crushed grains or whatever, kind of got stuck, did not have enough fermentables to really get enough alcohol. He was able to obviously work the still and extract as much alcohol as he could, but there just wasn't enough to work with. I think one part of the episode he talked about his proof dropped off quick, and that's one of the things that happens if you don't have a lot of alcohol to kind of bring to the table. And that's where I kind of felt lucky because my ABV kind of dropped more gradually. If you saw those jars lined up, each one was about 10 proof difference. So like the first one may have been 140 or 150, those first couple jars, and then we were 130, 120. And I could slowly kind of see, you know, the alcohol fade, flavors come up, these things came out at different points. And it, like I said, I lucked down that run like that came out. See, we got some more people coming on. Like I said, anybody have a question, feel free to fire off it anytime. And not just about the show. If you just, you know, if you're new to the channel or thought I was just a weird enough guy on the show last night and, you know, wanted to know what I was doing or what I was thinking about, or just, you know, want to comment what you thought about the show in general, please leave it down there. I'm open to about everything. So, like I said, that's kind of how I built my mash. I'm a home brewer. Really what... oh, yeah, Brian, take care of that baby boy. You gotta make sure he's getting fed. But the base premise, like I said, I kind of went in the malted barley direction. I did throw in some oats just because, again, stylistically, you had had some different stuff in there. No one would... also, too, I know my Irish friends, my Scotch friends have a little different point of view on who made what kind of whiskey first and this, that, and the other. And so I add the oats to avoid that. Well, hey, that's kind of a single malt Scotch, you know, with a little bit of peach in there. You could have claimed, hey, you were kind of making a single malt Scotch there. And again, stylistically, before we started labeling stuff and who did what whenever, they were probably making something fairly similar, but I threw in the oats just to kind of differentiate that. And I do love the creaminess oats adds to beer, and some of that does transfer into the final spirit. That's another great thing about being a home brewer or doing this exercise is, again, you become really aware once you do X amount of batches. Not only what malted barley does, but if you do Hefeweizen, now the wheat adds certain flavors, other adjuncts, if you do rice syrup salts, what have you. Really great mental exercise if you're wanting to get into distilling eventually. Not too bad. That is just a little side note. So I probably have in this infinity bottle about 20 different whiskeys. Like I said, I call it my North American value. We've got Canadian and American. We got blended bourbons, rye, what have you. I think a little Dickel rye in there. And that kind of mellows everything out, or kind of rounds off the edges. That being said, though, nothing really sticks out either. But you know what? For a blend of budget bourbons, comes out pretty nice here. So next we'll get into like I said, that was kind of my plan for the mash. Did get thrown a little curveball at the start of the show. I want to say up front, this is a real legit actual competition. Hey, you got this, that, and the other. They will throw a curveball. We did not initially think we were going outside to do our mash, and that threw a curveball because when we got out there, it was probably in the 50s that day, higher 50s, maybe 60s. It was a cool day. And so getting things to temperature out there was a lot more difficult. Also, too, they used a different burner for the mash system than they do for the still, and that had a lot less BTU. So I kind of had to scramble the way I did my mash. Didn't talk about it on the show, except they did point out that I used malt extract. Malt extract is great for beginner brewers because you don't have to worry about being efficient. As long as you get that extract mixed with the water, you're going to have something fermentable. And again, that's another reason why I did that instead of going with an all-grain mash. I've just seen enough of the shows to see where somebody kind of doesn't get all their grains converted, or again, in a shorter kind of window when you only have a few days to a couple of weeks to let some ferment out, they don't hit the fermentation. And so that's why I went with the malt extract. Flavor-wise, it's similar to a pale two-row malt, which is what you're going to do with a lot of base of beers. Anyway, whatever kind of beer you're building out, I did add some Munich and other styles of malt, a little of the peated malt. Came out real nice. They might have... DJ Jazzy Jason, what's going on, my man? What up? Glad you can make it in. Like I said, I had some other malts in there. I said on the show, and when I started thinking about adding the peat, it's kind of where I wanted to go. I wanted to shoot for something called a Rausch beer, which is German style of smoked beer, but that malt balances out the malt sweetness that's typical in a lot of your darker German beers. Think of your Oktoberfest style beers. That smoked malt really brings a nice balance, and so that was kind of the base of what I was wanting to build my mash for, and I think we got there. I remember tasting my mash when we did the first distillation. Rausch beer. That's really what it was. Yeah, Brett, I'm glad, DJ, I'm glad to bring that up. One of my very first video, if you're new to the channel, years ago, I literally did the old bread yeast and some Welch grape juice and made homemade wine. Literally my very first video, my most popular video. And I tell people all the time, that's as simple as it, can be. You really can't beat it. And that's the great thing about this hobby is you can make something very drinkable from a little bit of bread yeast and some Welch grape juice. Once you start learning a little bit more, maybe you start using wine yeast. Maybe you start adding sugar or honey or different things, and making meads, ciders. Really great little hobby, and that's kind of what I do on this channel. If you're new to the channel, I really don't talk about distillation on this channel just because of the legalities of it. Yeah, no, a lot of dead yeast on there, but again, that's part of the learning curve. You'll you can either just decant off, or a coffee filter cheesecloth. Either one will work fine for that. But again, a little experiment like that, is really kind of builds your way out. You make a big enough batch of that, you can distill it and call it brandy. So yeah, no, that's cool there. So let's talk about the actual, finished my mash. Came out fine, got all the alcohol needed. Then we get in that first distillation run. All right. The computer went dead on me. I still should be able to keep up on the questions. So the first distillation run. So let me back up a little bit, actually. So I came into this deal when I landed and we got ready to shoot the first day. Met Connor, met Tanya. I could already tell, once I met Connor, from Ireland, the distiller, I'm screwed already, And then I met Tanya, and I don't know if they mentioned it in this episode, but her husband was on a previous episode, I think back in January. And so she had seen the process. She'd come down with him. She'd seen the process. She knew some of the guys already on the show and whatever. And I was, before we even shot, I was like, well, free trip to Tennessee, we'll get to see Tickle and stuff like that. And so that was kind of my deal when we got started. And then when we did the mash in, I described what I was doing. When I heard Connor, though, then got his drain crushed, that's when I was like, oh, this, the number one seed is looking like he's having a tough time. And so that's the first time I kind of thought, well, maybe I got a shot at this thing. So after we got our mash in done, I felt a little better about the process. Also, too, I'd been kind of running around. I'm doing the West Coast, East Coast thing by the pick me up or whatever. So got that nailed down. I will do a little tourist or a bit of public service announcements for Eastern Tennessee. If you get out there, that's where we shot, was in Eastern Tennessee, not too far from Gatlinburg, in that area. The Smoky Mountains, beautiful area, absolutely beautiful if you get a chance. We shot in the fall. Smoky Mountains in the fall, tough to beat there. And everything, and I will say just the interaction with people in Moonshiners, because I've gotten this question a couple times. They are as real as can be. They are, really from Tennessee, really good, just good down home folk, what have you. Just had a fun time with those, and just that area. Little side note: I did grow up in Texas, but also in Georgia, so I kind of grew up in the South, and so you kind of get back home, you hit a Waffle House. That was kind of nice. So we did that. So anyway, like I said, we'll kind of work through. First distillation run, all I was trying to do is get a real clean jar. Try to hit, if you've watched the show, they kind of applied a 100 proof jar. Now, one of the things is they don't let you bring a hydrometer. So how do you know how it's 100 proof? And if you watch the show, you'll see this a lot. They do shake in the jar. And it's really how the bubbles dissipate and then kind of how they spread out in the shine itself is how I learned to read it. And I got fairly accurate with it. And a little dirty secret, 100 proof has the most unique, I guess, bubble signature. So it's kind of the best spot to learn from. Once you learn that kind of bubble signature, you can kind of work your way out either way and kind of know, all right, am I a little low, a little high, how much low, how much high. So, and also true, that 100 proof is a very unique spot for spirits out there. That's also where we had something called the Bottle and Bond Act, the first liquor labeling act, and that was based at 100 proof. There's something about 100 proof where, again, it's easy to do the visible eye check. Also, once you get like a bourbon, especially, or whiskeys, 100 proof, you get a lot more flavor than you do at the 80 proof, just because you're cutting it down. And that 100 proof, you really start to get some flavors open up, but it's still drinkable. Once you get much over that, especially some of these, barrel proof bourbons, 120, 130. I think Jack does one called Cojita or something like that. That's 140. A little too much, but 100, you find a lot of nice, just beautiful flavor there that's still at a proof that's drinkable. Also, too, 100 proof is the base that the TTB, uses to tax spirits. So it just kind of works out. So if you see the show and you see they're always talking about 100 proof spirit, or that's a good jar, there's several reasons for that. It wasn't just randomly they're picking out 100 proof. 100 proof, again, is a perfect spot to read what they call the bead or the bubbling action. It's how the TTB is kind of the point. So let's say a good perfect example is Wild Turkey 101, 101 proof. So for our purposes, it's 100 proof. Federal tax is based on 100 proof spirit per gallon. And at one time when I had my company, it was like $13 and something cents a gallon. Now, if you were selling an 80 proof product, you paid 80% of that tax. If you had a 110 proof, you're paying 110% of that tax. So again, the 100 proof area is just a nice zone, and it kind of works out, especially kind of, again, what they do on the show. A lot of these moonshines, especially when they, when you win and, your moonshine comes out, we'll talk about that in a little bit. 100 proof is just a perfect spot for that. So let's get into that real quick. So as I mentioned on the show, if you win, you get bragging rights, but you also get a run of your moonshine. And I think the term they're using now is a major distillery. In the past, it was Sugarland Distilling, and I think for the most part, it's been Sugarland. So they are going to produce a batch. Mental math, it's looking at roughly like 50 cases. And they do a special release, and they'll have my face on the bottle, and it'll be part of the Master Distiller series. When that's coming out, I do not know. I just reached out to them today. I was going to let the episode air, but I reached out to them today and have not heard back from them yet. But it's probably going to be a while. That's a long process, and also too, I think they're still working on like some of season 3's winter stuff, so it may be a while on when my stuff come out. But it is produced by Sugarland Distilling. It's going to be part of the Master Distiller series. Where they're going to sell it, I'm not 100% sure. I know they've talked to me about a product release, coming back for a product release party someday there in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. But when and where, I don't know. And then where they sell it, everything I've seen online is they pretty much sell it just at the distillery in Gatlinburg. I will, contact them as far as for my peeps in Vegas. Maybe we can get a case out. Maybe we, can't. I know they're distributed by Southern out here, so maybe if anybody knows somebody in Southern or wherever, let me know. Maybe we can chit chat. But yeah, that's coming somewhere down the line. Now again, when or where, I don't know. I've seen some. You can go to Sugarland's Instagram account. I've seen some of these release parties for. Looks like a cool deal. I told several of my buddies that it'll be nice to kind of go back down to Tennessee now that the show's aired, just to kind of see everything. And a little side note, when I was down there filming this, the show is massive down there. There was a scuttlebutt. There's a little restaurant by the hotel, chain restaurant, and I went there and ate a couple times, and I looked just like any other guy, but I didn't look like the local either, or I just kind of sat there. But I hear everybody, there's kind of a buzz. Hey, I heard they're shooting again in town. Oh, they're in town. Oh, yeah, I think they're staying at the hotel, blah, blah. And I didn't say a word, but it was interesting just to hear the buzz. So I'm sure if I go down there now, somebody like, hey, you're the guy, you're that guy. And I'll have to admit to it. That's the worst part about it. So, and that's, anyway, that's part of that. Anybody have any questions again about the show, or anybody? Like I said, didn't spend a ton of time talking to the other stars, even though they did seem pretty cool. Tickle seemed like a real cool cat. Got to meet Richard Landry. Oh yeah, making wine. Well, I'm glad I didn't know this when I was younger. Actually, I get all the time people will comment on some of my videos. Man, I wish I knew this in high school. I'm glad I didn't know it when I was in college. I'd have been dead. Will my liquor be here or only around my home area? Like I said, I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I know they do a release party in Gatlinburg. The parent company, Sugarland Distilling, distributes it everywhere. So a little background. This may be a fun little learning deal. In the liquor world, there's a million breweries, distilleries, wineries, this, that, and the other. People that make Jello shots and Fireball, and then down here all the little bars, the chain bars, restaurants, Hooters, Applebee's, all those. But then your mom and pops, and out here casinos, this and the other. In between is generally in each state 2 to 3 big distributors, and they are the ones that get stuff in between, and so you kind of have to work for them, and it takes an effort for a company to just send a case of booze, like, hey, we want a case of this booze in Colorado and everything. So it's going to take a little work. They are distributed here. You're in Kentucky, somewhat close to near Tennessee. Yeah. So Gatlinburg, and I'll let everybody know when the release party. Sugarland should be all over the place. But again, they're doing a limited run, so it's probably not viable for them to try to push it out in all kinds of other markets. Definitely they're going to sell it out of the distillery there in Eastern Tennessee. Maybe a couple liquor stores in that area. And like I said, maybe I can get them to bring something out here. They do have, who knows if it ever took off, what would happen? That'd be kind of funny. Speaking of which, there are some pochines out on the marketplace. Connor's company. So they only talked about a little bit on Master Distiller with the gentleman Connor from Kansas City. The distiller he works at has had pochine out for years. He's recently on his Facebook page done some different cocktails with his pochine, and they've been doing it for a while. I kind of felt bad for Connor in this whole deal. I'm like, God, this guy's got to go back to Ireland and a professional distillery and talk about not having one. But like that was just unfortunate on the grains there. But they have a pochine. There's one called Glen Drahan. I've seen it one liquor store here one time, and then I went back the other day and checked on the bottle and it's gone. But yeah, you don't see a lot of pochines on the marketplace. Ireland is starting to. Hi, Plan from Henderson. When are you doing a world tour? My life is a world tour. I say that I don't get out of Vegas much anymore. I do need a world tour. Maybe I can open for the Stones and see the world. Thank you for that. As far as pochine, so right now Ireland is trying to do with pochine what years ago France did with cognac, Mexico did with tequila, make it a term that they kind of own, kind of like Scotch. I can make a single malt whiskey, but I can't call it single malt Scotch. I can do it in the same way here in the U.S. I can't call it single malt Scotch because it's got to be made over there. Right now, because there's no solid rule on that term, there's American distilleries using it in a couple other places. I don't know how far along Ireland's on that. A good example of that is the term champagne. There's Champagne France, and there's certain thing that can be labeled as champagne, but the term also, some growers it's either Cook's or one of those kinds that gets to use it when they call it California champagne or champagne grapes or something. So some of these terms could get played around with, but hopefully people will get into poaching. Something I've learned, have I ever had the absinthe, not the stuff they call absinthe, but the genuine stuff? I have. That's been a long time ago. That was, I remember about 10 years ago, back when I did some cocktail competitions. That was kind of the new thing. Absinthe was coming back. We got to get on top of it. Oh, I got the real stuff. No, this is the real. So I do remember that. I've had it. It's not my cup of tea. It's not terrible. I've never had Malort. You know, I hear that's always the worst. I wouldn't put it in that category. But it's something I just couldn't drink a lot of or every day. You know, that would just be a kind of a once a year. Kind of like Fernet. You know, I remember when that was a trend years ago, the Fernet thing. And I kind of view absinthe a little like that. It, you know, every once in a while it's something different, but I wouldn't drink it a lot. I would love to make it one of these days just as a trial. I have not done it. All right, that's something to talk about. So I'm sure people are going to ask about my homemade liquor videos. And again, I talked earlier that I don't talk about distillation much on this, and I won't on the channel just because of the legality. I know Tickle, you know, on the show talked about helping West Virginia legalize it, and apparently they did. I think Missouri and a couple other states have kind of a decriminalized stance on it. The way I've always explained, and again, I once had a federal liquor license, so I've done a little bit of research on the topic, is that owning a still is kind of like back in the day owning a bong. When you called it a water pipe, all right, well, cool. But if you put cannabis in it, well, then you're not cool. And same goes for stills. People own stills for essential oils, distilling water, vinegar, what have you. So you can't have a still. They sell them all the time on Amazon. You can go to my Amazon storefront. I point out a few that might be good if you're into that kind of thing. Wink, wink. And everything. It's the minute you put beer or wine in there to distill it is when it quote unquote becomes illegal. You can get, depending on where you live, you can get a permit from the TTB if you use it for production of fuel, ethanol. But you need a pretty big and kind of a specialized still for that. Why is moonshining still a thing when prohibition's been going for almost a century? I think it was kind of a romanticized thing at the time. I'll say this, and I'm not making any accusations here in Vegas, but working on the Strip and living in a place like Vegas, we have everything in the world. You want lobster at 3 in the morning, caviar, hot dog, whatever, you can get it. And so then that eventually gets, well, hey, can you give me something I'm not supposed to have? And stuff like moonshine is one of those things. There's just people out there that it's not the money. It's not they couldn't go. But I guarantee there's good old boys in the South, because I've met them, that they have the money to buy a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle or E.H. Taylor or something like that. But no, I heard if you could find and verify a bottle of popcorn something stuff today, it would go for a crazy price. And that's just the way it is. And I think a lot of people kind of like that. Also, too, there's a ton of myths and legends about moonshine and its perceived danger and like, oh, this stuff's really gonna, kick. The reality is, if their product's 100 or 110 proof, it's the same as any, as far as alcohol and what it will do to you, it's the same as any 100, 110 proof, whether it's a Knob Creek based, those are a little lower, but a similar spirit, the Absolute 100 vodka, it's going to do the same thing to you, but there's still kind of a romanticized note. And I think that's where the whole moonshine thing comes to. Also, we'll say this on moonshine and why you're seeing a lot more of it on the shelf space. There's a practicality to it because moonshine is unaged. I can fire up the still today and conceptually within a day or two have something that we could put on a shelf to sell. Where again, if you're making bourbon or any kind of brown spirits, it's going to be a while. And so what a lot of people found is, all right, I want to start a bourbon distillery, whiskey distillery, but I can't financially wait 2 years minimum to be called straight whiskey, but 4 years to produce something nice. So they may come out with moonshine today to bring in some cash flow, and then have some stuff barreled waiting to eventually come on. So. All right, DJ, so you bring up the whole thing about risk of blindness and, again, kind of homemade stuff and the danger. So let's, because those go into kind of the famous moonshine, kind of adds to that lore. So the blindness thing comes from basically methanol. And a lot of people, and I get this in a lot of my videos, about even like homemade wine or beer or whatever, oh, methanol, what about methanol? I'll go blind. Methanol in a high enough dose and concentration can lead to blindness. That is absolute fact. If you Google it, it'll show you. Where we get methanol in the production of moonshine, let's say, is at the very front of the run. As you're heating up your mash, you're basically heating up, in my example, a beer. And when you heat it up to about 172 degrees is when you start getting that beautiful ethanol that people yeah. So, but anyway, it's a little, at 172, that beautiful ethanol. Well, as you're heating up to that 172 degrees, once you start getting the 140s, other compounds start coming off. They boil at a lower temperature than water. And so those other compounds will come off, and methanol comes out before ethanol. And so at the start of that run, unlike the size scale that I had on Master Distiller, you're going to toss out maybe the first half pint or so of that comes off the still, because that's methanol. And you would just throw it out. Now, what probably happened, especially during Prohibition, is they were doing much larger runs to where you probably had 2 or 3 full jars of methanol coming off the still. And you had either unscrupulous or also probably just undertrained kind of folks that really didn't understand the process. And that's product. And if you just haven't been the guy that bought that jar, well, it's a tough day at the office for you. Now, there are also other products, things like bathtub gin at the time, that they weren't even playing. It wasn't just laziness or simple misunderstanding. The old bathtub gins, people, the mobsters would buy wood alcohol, mix it in the bathtub, water it down, cut it down, just throw some juniper, a little sugar in there, and that was it. They were flat out poisoning you. And again, that that is obviously where things went astray. Scooby-Doo, what's the best cheap beer you'd recommend for a strapped college student? Oh my God. Well, DJ, that's good. Actually, DJ brings up a great one. Old English. When I went to college, of course, I'm an old man. The convenience store near campus sold Old English 40 ounces for 58 cents a pop. That was tough to beat. I will say malt liquor generally tends to give you more alcohol for your dollar. As far as the cheaper beers, PBR is tough to beat for me. High Life used to be a cheap beer when I was in college. Now it kind of went up. What about Lone Star? Drank a million of them in Texas. They are now owned by the same company that owns Pabst. You can't go wrong with some Lone Star. That's a beer you should find fairly cheaply. When I was in college, and I don't know if it's still around. I think it's still around, but you don't see it much. Olympia was great. There was a grocery store near my apartment, $2.99 a 12-pack. You can't beat that. What's your thought on IPA? I'd rather hear it. You know, for a long time, I really didn't like IPAs. I went to the Great American Beer Fest back in 2013, and that's when the IPA thing was, was exploding. And I remember going there and just having my tongue beat up by the hops and stuff, and every beer was 7, 8, 9%. I remember 30 minutes into the thing, turning to a buddy of mine like, hey, I need a Miller Lite just to cleanse my palate, That being said, though, there are some good IPAs out there. Couple in particular that kind of turned me around on the IPA thing. You're damn right, Keystone Light Tall Boy, boys. Let me recommend a beer for IPAs because it might turn your view around. It's called Dank Dust. It's by Elysian Brewing. Dank Dust is a seasonal release, but they have a sister beer called Space Dust that you can find year round and should be most liquor stores and even some convenience stores. It is really danky, really hoppy. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's especially the Dank Dust. It smelled like you poured a beer in a bag of weed and then you just drank it. That's what it smells and tastes like, but it's absolutely delicious. The hops are there, but it's more of a really fresh kind of hops. It doesn't beat you down. For whatever reason, I like those. I like those two particular IPAs. They are again dankier, a little more of that citrus piney hops, but definitely nice. Have you ever worked at a liquor store? No, I have not. Oddly enough, that is a contemplation. I've been bartending for a long time, and if you've been following the channel for a while, I bartended 15 years in the Strip, but I left during COVID, and I've bartended a couple places since, but I kind of wanted to get out of that. I've thought about liquor stores. I'd really like to work at a distillery or a brewery. Unfortunately, Vegas didn't have a lot of those. Liquor store wouldn't be too bad. I would actually love just to kind of work the aisle, and have people ask me. Oddly enough, when I go to the liquor store, and I would love to know, have a psychologist walk me, but I'll walk in a liquor store, people just come up to me dressed like this and ask me a question like, how did you know that I'm that guy you should ask the question? Yes, here in Nevada does have some decent IPAs too. Tastes like I'm drinking church. now I'm gonna have to find one just to figure out what that means. But anyway, Scooby-Doo. You know what? I would love to work at a liquor store. I've been approached on things like brand ambassador or sales guy. I don't want to do sales. I'm not very sales guy. There's so much stuff out right now that the sales world just tough. But as far as talking to people, or I would love to do classes. I know Total Wine Spirits out here does some wine tastings, beer tasting spirits. I would love to do something like that. Well, Scooby, I will give you a nice little chuckle. As far as running for public office, yours truly has actually ran for president 3 times. Literally as a gag, so I don't want to get any politics going here. But back in 2008, I had a bar back. If you're old enough to remember 2008, people back then thought the world was ending. They were talking like we're talking today, just a little calmer. But back in 2008, the world was supposedly blowing up. And anyway, we were talking politics at work, and my bar back said, made a little joke. Well, I'd vote for you for president. I'm like, I think I can make that happen. Because I just turned past 35, and that's how old you gotta be president. So I ran for president in 2008, 2012, 2016. My platform was I was going to legalize marijuana and moonshine. So I think everybody can appreciate that. But yeah, Scooby, that was my foray into running for public office. And you're right, I'm too young to probably run for office these days, even though I'm in my 50s. But, right, so What else we got going on here? All right, so we'll kind of get back on the show a little bit. Something I did want to talk about, and they at least let me talk about it a little bit. Boy, there was a lot of stuff. And I get it. They had to nail this down to 41-minute show, and with coming in and out of break, stuff like that, it kind of leaves a lot. But I did talk about a lot of little things, and I'm glad they let me bring up the concept of my cocktail, and I'll talk about that real quick. I had really kind of overthought it. You know, they'd contact me and like, hey, we're gonna shoot the show in a couple weeks, and so I kind of started preparing, and my whole premise when I went to Tennessee and started filming, where I thought my game plan was, all right, let me get to the final two. Let me get to where I'm making a cocktail, and as a professional bartender in Las Vegas, I will live with that. Whoever I had to meet, however good they were, whatever, I'll live with the consequences if I can get to the cocktail round. And that's kind of how I did everything. And so I was really planning for that cocktail, and I was going to go with a sipping cream. If you like sipping creams, check out some of the videos on my channel. I make a chocolate peanut butter. I just call it a cream liqueur, but you can call it a sipping cream. Kids, check that out. It's absolutely delicious. And I make 2 or 3 things like that, so I thought of doing a cocktail like that. No, I have not had Hennessy and Sprite. It's funny, I was talking to Connor from Master Distiller. We were kind of chatting the other day. He had made I think a margarita with the pochine, and I kind of kid him a little bit. And everything, and I told him about making Hennessy margaritas, and he's like, "Well, what? That's great." We went through a phase out here, Hennessy margaritas, and so when I see Hennessy, I just think about that. What do you think of Ellis Island and LV and their local beers? Well, I love Ellis Island. I could do an entire live stream of just stories at Ellis Island, but that's for another time. Now, unfortunately, though, they are no longer producing local beers. Appears they have taken out. They're doing a little expansion. They've taken out the brewery, and they were already contracting a brew out of Utah, and have just decided to go with that. As far as Las Vegas local beers go, the town is in the right direction. When I moved out here in 2006, there were 2 or 3 local breweries. That was about it. There was one out where I lived in Henderson called Barley's. It was part of the Station Casinos chain. Decent brews, but they didn't work outside the box. There was one called Big Dogs, which is possibly the biggest one we got out here. If not, it's in the top 2 with Tenaya Creek. They actually had a facility on the Strip back in the late 90s called Holy Cow. And I remember being in the building, and that was about it. But I do remember the old Holy Cow. And that was the first brewery in Southern Nevada history, period. So now we have probably 15 or so breweries out here. The Arts District, it's between the Stratosphere, the north end of the Strip, and downtown. A lot of cool breweries there. Abel Baker's probably the biggest one. There's Nevada Brew Works, Hot Nuts, Huddle, just to name a few. Vegas beer is going in the right direction. None of the big breweries have really broken out. As far as some of my favorite beers, Tenaya Creek does Laughing Jackalope. That's their big barley wine. Once full moon, I get in the mood for one of those. The red ale at Big Dog's tough to beat too. You should pay to stream on the Sphere. Well, let me tell you, that's definitely not in the 2024 budget, and we're going to have a good 2024 to put in the 2025 budget. I would love to go there. I have not been in yet. I've heard it's absolutely fabulous. I would definitely love to go in there. When they first started doing the test and first kind of teased the thing in the first few showings, a friend of mine, a well-qualified friend of mine, who has the YouTube Vegas Made Easy. Check that out. A little quirky view of Vegas. But he had a secret spot, a parking garage, just one of these little 2-story parking garages that are on the back side of that thing. That was pretty cool to see. Can I get your thoughts on PT's pubs buying up the individual pubs in Las Vegas? All right, well, that's a funny question. And Scooby, I'll let you do a little homework. Type in PT's Pub Crawl in your Google machine, and you should see in the Las Vegas Sun an article about me. Back about a dozen years ago or so, me and a couple friends actually did a PT's Pub Crawl. We had all the PTs in the valley. At the time, there was 34, and that was kind of why we did it, because we're like, good God, how many of these are there? Now they're all over, they're 60-something of them. I've always liked them. I used to joke around, you know, I'm an indoor athlete, poker, bingo, lawn darts, stuff like that. You go there, play video poker. A lot of them had either a pool table, dart machine, you know, golden tee, 24 hours. Used to have decent food. I do miss the mom and pop joints. It's just the math. Part of the deal is, so, you know, just so many people have come to town. The leases are going high. PT's has just such synergy that if you're a mom and pop joint, you've been doing this for 20 years, you want to cash out, I get it. Drinking something carried worthy Pilsner, first time I like good Pilsner. We're hitting Pilsner season right now. Getting hot. And so yeah, a good craft Pilsner is hard to beat. Oh, okay. DJ is asking about the quote-unquote grocery store called Meow Wolf. It's part of something called Area 15. I'm going to show my age a little bit because it's a little past me. But just northwest of the Strip, on the other side of I-15 is something called Area 15. It's one of these interactive experiences. There's no gaming there. They have a couple of bars, restaurants, stuff like that. The lighting's great. I also will let you know that it's not too far from a place called Planet 13, which is the largest dispensary out here. And let's just say there's a reason them two are together for that. They did have a actual distillery there called Lost Spirits or whatever. Actually sent them my resume. Another place didn't give me a call back, and apparently they're going out of business, but so be it. Let's see, I'm a big fan of golden tea, but yeah, the golden teas aren't too hard, or getting a little harder to find. Out here, one of the battles is, well, I could have golden tea and make X dollars off that, but I've got that video poker machine and I make a ton off that. So there's a little give and take out here. Like, you don't find a ton of pool tables out here because, again, you're only pumping that deal with quarters, but those video poker machines, some people are pumping with hundreds. It's quite impressive. So, so as far as Area 15, like I said, inside there's a place called Meow Wolf. That's supposedly like a fake grocery store, and they have stuff lined up like laundry detergent or whatever, but it's not real laundry detergent. It's art, I guess. I had a friend that when they opened, they interviewed him for running the place, and it didn't work out for him, but he's kind of explaining the concept, and I'm kind of like, eh? And, you know, like I said, if you ate a handful of edibles and walked in there, it might be a different experience. I don't know. But from what I gather, there's a lot. This is kind of a trend in the hospitality, tourist business. You're probably going to see more stuff like that. It's a decent place. They got some decent bars. They got a cool little arcade in there. They do have other interactive art. They have like a fake moon landing thing and this, that, and the other. You know, seemed like a cool place. Are you going to do more 1 gallon brews? Yes, I will do some more 1 gallon brews. I actually just went to the brew shop. I'd kind of taken the last few weeks off. I knew the show was coming up. I had some other things to do. I've really been trying to get the resume out. Like I said, I would kind of like, I would like to eventually kind of, you know, segue into, again, working at a brewery, distillery, whatever. So I haven't done those, but I do have a beer video coming out soon. Do I enjoy cannabis as well? Well, let's just say my lawyer told me I can't talk about that till 2028, but we'll discuss about that then. I live in Vegas and I like to have fun. I'll let you read between the lines, Scooby. But yeah, M&J, I do have some brews going. I think I may be doing an Irish Red next, and then summertime, I'm kind of going to start doing beers with Kvike yeast. Just it's so hot out here, you know, keeping something even at room temperature, it didn't get cool enough to really keep it a nice fermentation zone. So I'll use the Kvike yeast. Go find me to put me on that spear. Woo! That I might need to get the Rat Pack back to fund that. I might need Jerry Lewis to help me on that fundraiser. When's the next episode? Vegas. Oh, my man, Vegas be easy. Big Vinny Vegas. Glad you're on the stream. You know what? I was going to ask you the same question. When's your next video coming out? I do have shorts coming out. I've been playing with shorts too lately. Just they're easy to do from my perspective. Also, Vegas just got enough weird stuff where we just had the Tropicana go down. They're going to tear down Margaritaville. So I kind of like to get out. Again, my guy at Vegas made easy. He'll tell you there's enough. I can spend all day shooting stuff on this trip. So might need to do some more of that stuff too. So yeah, kind of get back. We're leaving off about the cocktail finally. Like I said, I was wanting to go with a sip and cream. I made all kinds of variations of it. And I just told myself, you know what? I'm just going to make a mojito. Oh, so interesting. Yes, DJ, I have been actually years ago. One of the first distilleries I went to was Jack Daniel's. I worked at a major casino on the Strip, one of the really big ones, to where they let us, and we're talking about 12 years ago. Now this is a more common thing, but this one is kind of a newer deal. They let us individually pick our own barrel of Jack Daniel's single barrel each year. They did it comes out to like 200 something bottles once they bottle it. And that was our allotment for the year. At the time, it was an allocated thing, and they let us go pick it out. I was one of the bartenders selected. We got to go up there. It was a great trip. They flew us into Louisville. We got to go to the big cooperage at Brown-Forman. Watching a barrel being made is pretty impressive. Then we went down. We actually also stopped at the Woodford Distillery, which is a beautiful country out there. They prepared us dinner, stuff like that. That is one of the things I do miss about working on the Strip, and especially in big joints. You go to some of these places like, oh, you work at this? Yeah, you're somebody, and we'll take care of you. This, that, and the other, and they took care of us. And so it was pretty nice. Have you ever thought about making prison wine or Pruno? Well, a lot of people will say that very first video of mine, it's called Simplest Way to Make Booze, is kind of that. I don't have a stainless steel toilet in the house, so not quite lifelike, but kind of, I've covered, I have a series called Will It Ferment, where we just kind of take all kinds of random stuff. I've fermented cotton candy, Skittles, what have you, so it's kind of a similar mental exercise. Yeah, DJ, all the black there, if you go down to that area, and you'll see a lot of black mold. That's a certain mold that comes off, like the rick houses have it, or it just kind of covers everything. Yeah, black lung might be a real thing down there. It's interesting, but it's a really cool facility. Jack Daniel's, cool story. We were there when they were creating the charcoal, burning the maple, sugar maple for it. It's a cool experience. Going into those big rick houses where they have all the barrels, and I joked at the time we were doing it, I just wanted to roll on the floor and just kind of let it wash over me. It was absolutely beautiful. But yeah, no, I've been up there a couple times. Would love to get back. I know Tennessee. One of the things, a few people I talked to down there shooting the show is, Kentucky's known for the Bourbon Trail. Tennessee's really wanting to build out a moonshine trail, and there's tons of distilleries, and they've got all kinds of now. Summertime, there's going to be all kinds of different things. I think the Maggie Valley Jam's one of the big deals. I would love to go down there this summer, depending on how things work out. I would love to go down there and see that. I didn't really get a chance to get out much. Where we were at in Eastern Tennessee, there weren't a lot of rent-a-car places, stuff like that. One thing about Vegas is you can walk pretty much anywhere, and there's not that out in the country. Yeah, I wish I'd made Jimmy Beam. Now, the story on Jim Beam there, I had the privilege 20-something years ago to actually meet Booker, from who we get Booker's from. Booker is in the lineage of, the families that have been the master distiller, what have you. Booker was the 6th. Freddie was, I believe, the 7th. And now Freddie Jr. is the next one. I've been lucky enough to meet those guys throughout the years. I had Bookers with Booker back in the day. So really cool experience. Jim Beam has a little soft spot in my heart. Is it the greatest bourbon ever? No, but it's a classic one. Just if I was kind of teaching someone from outside the U.S. who never had bourbon, that would still be an introductory bourbon, in my opinion. You have good hair, bro. I think, I was joking with some folks that one thing I'm glad about this master distilling come out is that my hair finally gets the spotlight it so richly deserves. So I appreciate that. All right, guys, let's see. We're going about an hour and a quarter. Maybe do another 10, 15 minutes while we're, if you guys have any other questions, what have you. We'll keep going. Now, like I said, the cocktail, I just decided to go with mojito. The casino I worked at, I started at the pool bartending, and it's one of the big casino pools, and mojitos were our thing. And they told us we used to sell 100,000 mojitos a summer out there, and I felt like I did half of them myself. Also, too, we used to do a deal, day of the Kentucky Derby, which is coming up. The mint julep is, of course, the big drink of the day. And I've always heard there at the race, they do about 100,000 that day. Sleepyhead, what network was your show on? It was on the Discovery Channel. They're going to have reruns, I think, a couple times this weekend. One of the cool things about shows like Master Distiller stuff is 3 in the morning, 11 in the afternoon. You never know when you're in a bar somewhere and might randomly be on. So kind of a cool deal. So keep an eye out for that. The episode's called Lucky But Illegal, if you look it up. Are you done working at casinos? Most likely. Fun job. I was the happiest bartender in Las Vegas up until March 13th, 2020, when I got laid off for the pandemic. And when I came back, they just had decided to blow up the world. And I share that feeling with a lot of people that worked on the strip at the time. And I just kind of said, I do not need that. I'm lucky. Single guy, no wife, no kids, don't have a ton of bills. Some people couldn't leave, but I just said I'm kind of done. I gotta be careful how I say this. I just want to say I don't think casinos are serious about bartenders anymore. The casinos on the strip, especially, and I don't have time for that. There's some, privately owned places, or I'm sure there's some restaurants, where the ownership does. But as far as the casinos themselves, the town's not as fun as it used to be. I hate to say that. I still love the town in a sense. It's still fun to walk the strip, see the freak shows, and there's still a lot of fun spots. But do I anticipate Discovery groupies? Oh my God. Who knows? See, one thing about this show that I found out that it's actually worldwide. It gets shown pretty much worldwide, and it's got a bigger. It's actually got a lot of traction and fandom in the UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, where home distillation is legal. So, but I don't think they're getting the show for another year or so. So probably this time next year, I might have some lovely vixens from Australia wanting to run their fingers through my hair. And ladies, that's an option. We can make that happen for you. But no, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Who actually seen it? Buddies and I had kind of a running funny conversation. Maybe if you want to throw out who you think, but we had a discussion. Who's the most famous person that's going to see this? You know, I joked, well, it'll probably be some country singer or this, that, and the other. You know, and I joke, well, maybe Carrot Top will see it or something like that. So it'll be fun. It'll be interesting to know who is the most famous person to have seen that. Consider Russian Discovery Channel groupies. Oh dear. Well, the FBI might tap my phones in because of that. I better watch out. I better stick with the Lithuanian models or something like that. Or actually, I gotta watch what I say. The casino I used to work at on the Strip had a ton of lovely young ladies from Eastern Europe. I used to joke with a beverage manager that he was running the Eastern European mob out here, but they do have a lot of lovely young ladies from Eastern Europe, and we have a ton of them out here. Who is the most famous person you saw while working at casinos? I saw them all. If you're in the big casinos out here, and if especially I lucked out, I got to work in a high limit room and stuff. I got to see them all. I'll say them. God, who's the most famous? I will tell you a fun story of running into Sylvester Stallone. One time I was at Caesars one night. I had played poker, got busted out of a tournament, and I was walking through the Forum shops. And this is when I first moved to town, and it's a 3-story shop that has like a weird circular escalator. Well, I'm walking by a real nice restaurant there called Joe's Stone Crab. And I see these folks coming out, and there's people in tuxedos and stuff, but it's a nice restaurant, whatever. And we're kind of walking to the escalator, and I kind of walk in front of this gentleman and his group, but I ain't got time for him. So I cut in front, we go down the escalator. All of a sudden, all these lights and just paparazzi. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? And I remember turning to the guy behind me. I'm like, hey, pal, why is this? And I'm 2 steps down. I turn around, and we're both eye to eye, and it's Stallone. He's a little guy. But I turned like, hey, what the hell? And when I saw him, he kind of looked at me like, I get it. Whatever. But, yeah, no, we see them all in the casinos. Caesar Casino here. Now, see, that's funny you talk about Nelly. I have heard good things about Nelly from cocktail waitresses, whatever. I've seen him out at the World Series of Poker, too. He's a poker player. And I've heard positive things about him, but, you know, we all have a bad night. Trust me, I've had a few myself. Yeah, the casino, the celebrity thing, man, you get them all, and they're good, bad. Some of them are more attractive, less attractive. I will say the one that just blew me away for being way more attractive than me, Jessica Biel. Kid, she's real. That's all. Whoa. So she was definitely real. But most of the time they're kind of aloof, but that's fine because you're like, well, I didn't want to talk to him. Like, anyways, I don't want to, you know. The unfortunate part is the way other people act around them, and it's one thing when guests act up, but then coworkers. I worked at a casino. There's kind of real, you know, we had enough celebrities come in, and all right, guys, we need to act right, and don't take pictures, don't ask for pictures or autographs or whatever. And then you'd see on Facebook someone posting a photograph with him. You're like, pal, you just make it bad for all of us, you know. But we get to see them all. Do they have the manual? Yeah, they still have some slots that have the pools. You have to research them. If you go downtown, they actually still have the slots that spit out coins. I believe Plaza and a couple of the older ones, I think upstairs at the California. I used to work, that was the first casino I worked at, was at the California downtown, and they had a section of slots upstairs that were still, they still had a woman carry a change cart, and if you want to roll a quarters, 110 or whatever. No, the handles aren't well, some handles are disabled, but a lot of them, I played one. I was at a local casino. My first casino I went to in Vegas called Palace Station. I was there the other night, and they still had a few of those. So David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar? Now, see, this is the questions that people want to know. I am admittedly a Sammy Hagar fan. I've ran into Sammy before, haven't interacted with Dave. I've read his biography, fun book. Sammy's a better musician and singer, and that's, if you've seen the shows, Dave famously, he wrote the songs, he just didn't remember the lyrics. Sammy remembers the lyrics. I like Sammy, just always been, like I said, a big fan of Sammy. I like Sammy before he got into Van Halen. And considering they were talking about other people like Patti Smith, and I love Hall & Oates, but Daryl Hall is the lead singer. No, Sammy was the right choice. I'm glad they went that route. Going to all paper tickets, yeah. No, that's well, you cut back on all the little wet naps, where you used to have these little, the KFC wet naps everywhere because your hands were sticky. So, Buffalo, golly. I hear Buffalo in my sleep. Those, I don't know what it is about those slot machines, but everybody loves them. And even like you go to a local video poker bar, the locals play them too. It's not just the tourist. Buffalo, that's pretty funny. But all right, guys, we're about 80 minutes in. We'll go, like I said, another 10. We'll just round it out at an hour and a half. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Like I said, hope everybody enjoyed the show last night. If you want to catch it, it'll be on reruns. Go just to the Discovery Channel website. They'll have the list of shows. You should be able to find the specific episode, and then you'll click on that link, and it'll tell you when it re-airs. But like I said, it comes kind of like if you're old enough, you might remember in 2004, the World Series of Poker. The 2003s and 4s. ESPN would play that all the time, 2 or 3 in the morning. Well, you got to have something to watch. And after a while, that's when all those poker players became a thing, MGM and Caesars buying up. Yeah, I don't get it. Well, I understand why they're going nationally to get it, because they're buying up some of these regional casinos to get into the sports betting whenever that market opens up. They have divested a little bit here. Like MGM did get rid of Mirage. Mirage is about to become Hard Rock, which is now, the old Hard Rock is now called Virgin. And so there's a little movement there. MGM years ago sold Treasure Island during the recession, and Circus Circus. Those are now owned by a gentleman named Phil Ruffin, who's ran those into the ground, but he kind of knows what he's doing on that deal. Ruffin he was the gentleman who bought the old Frontier years ago, back in the 90s, for $81 million. And I think he sold that property for like 1.2 or 3 billion. And paid cash to buy TI, so it did work out for him. Yeah, these casinos, I got a feeling the next couple of years could be rough in Vegas, because they're pretty sure they can just charge tourists wherever they want. And they do not think it's ever going to soften up. They're tearing out all the buffets because they think everybody wants, $25 cheeseburgers. Cosmo is now MG. Yeah, boy. I know some folks at Cosmo, and I would love to talk to them, because I bet they're telling me, oh my God, I thought we got Gotta wait for those guys. Will Virgin Casino ever be successful? That's hard to say. That's kind of a rough spot in the old Hard Rock. If you remember it back in the day, well, A, you're a little older, no one cares much anymore, and it's just kind of off the strip, and it's just not the same, there's just not the vibe in town anymore. Also, too, just MGM and Caesars and that marketing department, and also, too, everything becoming about sports, sporting events, event-driven thing, the Sphere or whatever. Virgin does not have, they have the Joint, but it's not really the place for acts anymore. So I just don't know how they're going to. Also, too, it's Virgin Casino, or it's Virgin Hotel. The casino's ran by the folks that run, I believe, what's the big, Foxwoods up in Connecticut. So you'll get some of that synergy, but I don't, they're not going broke, I don't think. But as far as successful, I think I've been there once or twice since they reopened, and just on accident kind of thing. But people punching and kicking machines for it's a, I call them pounders. Like, you go to a local bar and a video program, it's like John Bonham, doing Moby Dick on the drums, bro. Is the LV to LA bullet train destined for failure? I don't know. There's enough people coming. They may accidentally get enough people. Now, part of the problem, and this is the frustrating part of it, is that we had a monorail that's now going to go bankrupt, and now they're trying to sell us another thing. And well, you guys never did that one right. Why do we think if they would have just extended the monorail that's still up on the east side of the strip, they would have just extended downtown, not just to McCarran. They let, when that thing was being proposed, they let the taxi drivers bully them. The taxi drivers were going to quit working. The taxi drivers weren't going anywhere. They're all broke. That's why they got to work all the time. That's why they're miserable all the time. They're broke. They weren't going to quit working if you built that monorail. They should have connected to the airport, but they didn't. They could have at least connected downtown. That would have made it so much more viable. But they let the cab companies bully them, and then before you know it, the cab companies got put out of business because they have an inefficient model, and they jerk people around out here. And now, but we didn't get the monorail we wanted to because we let them bully them. That the cab companies now don't have the lobbyists to keep up with the, don't have lobbyists to keep the local politicians enthralled, and so now it's just a mess. Part of the problem is they're not going to connect that to the monorail. They should have this thing run all the way up to the strip to where then people can get off and then go to a monorail. But there's going to be a few mile gap that we're going to end up having 400 Toyota Priuses on the road to run people back and forth. So it could work if they wanted to, but for some reason they don't. And they're politicians. Anyway. The one here in Harris, if I lose 100, I'll drink 100 free soda. Well, a lot of people try to do that in Vegas, and they end up paying $100 for a drink. I've had several $60 beers, waiting on it. When will we get a light rail? I don't think we'll get a light rail because, again, they messed up that monorail. Also, this town's kind of laid out weird. We don't have, other cities you have several other main highways besides the interstates running through. Here, it's the 15 and the 215. That's about it. It's kind of laid out weird, so I don't know how we're going to fix this. Do you mean they up the price? No, they don't up the price for bad spenders. They up the price for your good customer. Can I use 10W30 oil in a Chevy Impala? You're asking wrong guy. My VCR still says 12 o'clock. Here. guys, it's been fun. We're almost getting a little too dark to keep shooting. I'm turning my light on, but glad you guys stopped by. Hopefully answered whatever questions from the show. If you haven't caught the show, catch it. Not just my episode. It's a fun little show. Kind of cool to see these guys. I wish I had those stills. I wish I had. They didn't show it in there, but my jar of 90 proof when I drink it, I'm like, and I wrote in my notebooks, Flavor Town. I wish I had that jar. But anyway, guys, appreciate you showing up. I had to do some more live stream. I will definitely got some beer, videos coming back out. I'm going to start, doing some more long form videos. Oh, sorry, Jim. Yeah, we've been going about an hour and a half. Like I said, the sun's about to go down. Jim, if you have any quick questions about the show, though, I will definitely answer that. No recommendation for a vacuum cleaner. I do not. I drink domestic beers, but I don't do domestic task. So maybe best way to put it. Yes, DJ, appreciate all you guys. I'll let you guys go. Have a good night.